Have you ever had a situation where you knew you should be feeling one way, but you feel a completely different way? Oftentimes that'll happen where we start feeling frustrated and we're like, oh, I wish I wasn't feeling frustrated right now. I wish I was happy. But our body says, no, this is a moment you should feel frustrated. Well, I think that many of us wish that we had better control of our emotions. And I've discovered there's a ton of strategies and techniques and tips that we can do that give us a little bit more control in that area. But all of those things don't just magically show up for us. We're wired the way we're wired, and it takes a lot of work and effort in order to actually change or rewire who we are as a human. So I think there's things we can do to shift and adjust, but most of the time they don't happen overnight. Now, I did have an experience several years ago where I was being threatened by someone, and they kept telling me they're going to sue me, going to put me out of business, going to take all my assets, all these terrible threats, telling the world that I was a horrible person, and just telling all these stories that maybe most of the time contained 10% truth, and the rest of the time it was just made up. But it was my first experience having someone publicly attack me, and my first experience having somebody that was spreading like defamation of character and libelous material about me. And it was really a terrifying moment, to be honest. And I really wanted to be able to just have it run off my back. But at the time, I didn't understand a lot of what I discovered. And so I can credit that experience with being one of those moments where we have the school of hard knocks, where it forced me to dig deep into myself and then also to reach out to the world and discover, okay, who's been through things similar? Who's had these emotional experiences? How do I deal with this from a legal perspective? How do I deal with this from a personal perspective? Who am I really? How do I deal from this with the emotional baggage that comes with it? And so a ton of growth came from a seemingly negative experience. Have you ever had anything like that where maybe you think you're doing something really good, and the further you get into it, the worse it becomes? I can tell you with this guy, when I first started working with him, I was like, oh my goodness, I feel like I can really help this guy. And maybe you've been there where you meet somebody. And for me, I went to this meeting and he and his business partner were sitting there. And I just saw them and I thought, I think I could really help both of them, especially as they talked and with knowing what I knew. I was like, this is going to be great. I can really help them. We can do some good work. We'll make all these things happen. They were waiting for me right outside the door after the meeting ended. And they said, hey, we want to work with you. And you've probably been there where you're like, oh my goodness, this is one of those moments where you just knew that things aligned, everything was great. We jump in and I'm trying to appease them and trying to help them and trying to work together. They implemented a ton of the strategies that I gave them, but it began to turn sour and they demanded more and more and got to the point where they told me that they would decide if they'd pay me, when they'd pay me, how much they would pay me. And they started trying to tell me that I shouldn't be earning money from the work. Just weird statements like that along the way where they'd be like, oh, no, you can't charge for that. Well, you literally just approached me, asked me to do this work, and now you're telling me I can't charge for the work you asked me to do. It was really a bizarre circumstance. Fortunately, we did make it through. And at this point, it doesn't raise my blood pressure at all to talk about it. I don't feel threatened at all to talk about it. But for a very long period of time, just me thinking about their names of those people would get me into a state of fight or flight. And I was sure that I was physically being attacked. And that is so interesting to me because my body was on such a high degree of defense that I literally could think of their names and be scared that they were right there going to get me. And what I'm trying to teach from all of this is oftentimes we'll have a situation where intellectually we know one thing, but emotionally we have another. And when we have those inconsistencies where your brain's operating at two different directions, you're going to have a collision, and those collisions aren't pretty. So what is it in your life and in your business that's causing collision points? And oftentimes, intellectually, you'll know one thing, your heart's telling you a different thing, and you don't know how to reconcile the two so that you can move forward. When things like that happen, business owners will stall out. They won't be able to accomplish what they're supposed to. They're going to feel emotionally drained. They're going to feel frustrated. Sometimes you don't even know that there's a collision happening And yet it does happen. And when it does happen, you're going to have all those symptoms. So if you are experiencing that, where is it that you're stuck? Where is it that you're having trouble? Where is it that you're unable to proceed or to grow? I've talked to some people who felt they weren't worthy of making money. So they were good at what they did. They were highly skilled. They had unique talents and abilities. They could deliver on time. And yet deep inside, they didn't feel worthy of the money that people were happy to pay them. And so they weren't able to bill people. I've known other people who felt like they were always about to be attacked by someone else. And so they're always on the defensive. And when you're always on the defensive, it's really hard to ever collaborate with anyone or work with anyone, even employees or teammates or anyone, even your relationships. It's going to be hard to have those just natural friendships with people because their guard is up so high that they constantly feel like they're under attack, even though from an intellectual perspective, they know they're not truly under attack. So what can you do when you're in one of those circumstances that you feel one way and intellectually you know a different way? There's a number of people out there who have developed techniques to help overcome this. And I'm no counselor, I'm no therapist, I'm none of those types of things, but I wanted to call that out for business owners and say, if you're experiencing some of those things, the best thing you might be able to do for yourself and your business is to, one, recognize that you have one of these internal conflicts, and then two, start studying on the different techniques that are available out there that can help you to overcome these conflicts so that you can have some peaceful resolution and potentially have your business open up because you're no longer fighting yourself all day, every day.